welcome back, and today we want to look at how to set up a RAID on a QNAP NAS. We've talked about it in the past before about different software and operating systems available on different network attached storage devices, and today I want to talk about QNAP and one of their newest devices, the TS351. It's their new 3-bay RAID 5 enabled NAS, primarily designed to give you the performance of RAID 5 and the safety of RAID 5, the redundancy it gives you, alongside an Intel CPU and HDMI portability at the rear, all of it at about 260 nickel, which is pretty good without that and without hard drive media, of course. So, like all QNAP NASs, if you want to set up a RAID, first you have to get to the desktop environment, and to do that, you have to make sure you go into QFinder, scan your localized environment for the NAS, and then make your way into it. From this desktop interface here, the graphic user interface, you can't really install anything much without first setting up your storage pool. So what you need to do is, first thing, go to the storage and snapshots option here, click on that, and at the overview, you can click through that, get rid of that because that's going to be about SSD caching, which is for another video. From here, you go to the overview where it says storage and head over here where it says no storage pool, because the storage pool is effectively where all of your volumes, your folders, your shared folders, everything is going to live. The storage pool comes first, and from here is where everything's going to live and come from. So click on this symbol, and then what it will do is it will tell you right now about all the disks in your configuration and what's available. So right now, we're not going to enable tiered storage because we don't have the SSDs installed, but if we did have SSDs in the available SSD bays, we could use those for SSD caching. Moving forward, we can look at the drives that are installed in this device, and there's our three 4TB drives that are inside this 3-bay NAS. And if we, for example, go for just 2 disks, we can select a RAID 1 or a RAID 0 to combine them. Or if we want to go the whole hog and go for a RAID 5, that means we use all 3 bays of storage, but we lose 1 drive worth of capacity to redundancy. That is to say that this NAS, once the RAID 5 is complete, can withstand 1 hard drive of failure. If 1 drive dies, all of your data is still going to be safe. And again, that's not one specific drive, that's any one of those 3 drives, because every wave of data that's written across these 3 drives is written thusly. There'll be a tiny little bit of data, tiny little bit of data, and on disk 3, a little blueprint of the data on the other 2. And when the next wave comes along, little wave of data on this one, the blueprint, little wave of data on 3. And with each wave, the little blueprint hops from drive to drive, responding to each layer. The result is, if 1 drive fails, the system can rebuild the data onto a fresh drive using the existing data and the blueprint data that exists on the other 2 drives. And that is the benefit of a RAID 5. There is the tiniest speed drop, but in a RAID 5, that's what you get. The hot spare disk here is if you install an extra drive, what you can do, say in the case of a RAID 1 environment, you can create a hot spare where this disk now lives in the background for if one of these 2 dies, and these are mirrored drives, if one of these drives suffers a hardware failure, the system will automatically rebuild the RAID using that 3rd disk, and that's what a hot spare is. So again, we're going to go for a RAID 5 environment, but we've got all our 3 drives. And if you want to learn more about RAID, you check out my RAID video. With regard to the SSD cache function, that's just letting you know that you need to make sure those slots are empty if you want to install SSDs and use them for improved read and write speeds thanks to SSD cache. Click next going forward, and here is when you can select when you want the system to let you know that you're running out of space. So if you're worried at 50%, 90%, whatever, if you want an alert to let you know when you're running out of space, this is where you set up the alert threshold. So again, we'll click next, and that's it. Now our new configuration is complete and our data is going to be ready to go. So the RAID is all set up. Let's enable our RAID. And that's it. It will start preparing the disks. Now, depending on the RAID configuration you choose and the power of your NAS, the amount of time it takes for a QNAP NAS to completely build a RAID can differ. And I say QNAP, this applies to pretty much any NAS brand out there. So if you are thinking of a RAID 1, for example, that is probably one of the quickest safe RAIDs out there. On a QNAP, this will normally take 7 to 8 hours. On a Synology, it can take 2 to 4. but the more powerful the CPU or the smaller or bigger the drives, that makes all the difference. A RAID 5 or an SHR in Synology's case will always be about 8 to 12 hours. It doesn't really differ between brands, and a lot of that is because of the way data is laid across those drives. But right now, this RAID 5 is probably going to take about 10 hours to complete. So what we're going to do is we're going to end this video here, and in the next video,
initializing or rebuilding RAID.
The more astute of you may have heard the NAS there make a little noise. That is the rear speaker on the TS351, and what that speaker does is it lets you know all the things that are happening on the NAS. It's one of the main reasons QNAP NAS and that speaker is so interesting, because it gives you real-time alerts, not just beeps, but tells you what's actually happening. As you can see, the pool is completed. We can go to there, and now it's starting to synchronize. Now, in synchronization, this is when the system in the background is preparing that space. It's kind of checking its integrity overall, and that's a synchronization. Right now, we can still start using this space to a degree. We can create a volume on this space and, really get things moving. So, for example, if we select the volume, we can start creating a volume on the storage space we've created, that RAID storage space. Storage pool 1 has been created. There's our storage space. Now the volume is where all your data is going to live. You can create individual folders. You can create basically the container of all of your data. Now what you can do is partition it so you can create multiple volumes or containers for different kinds of data. Or you can, if you want to have just one giant container of data, click set to max, and that will use up all the available space on those drives for one giant volume where all of your folders are going to live. For those that are considering things like surveillance or different user accounts where users are going to have wildly different user case scenarios for their data, that's when you might want to create multiple volumes utilizing different amounts of storage. Now, bytes per node, you shouldn't really play with this at this time unless you know what you are doing, because a lot of this is to do with the kinds of data you're handling and therefore the different way in which that data is going to be read and written, block by block, byte by byte, and more. The alert threshold we've already talked about, but if you want to enable encryption, what this will do is make sure all the data on that NAS is in that volume is locked up completely behind AES NI encryption, Advanced Encryption Standard, new instruction. And this will be a big benefit to those who have got very sensitive data. Finally, you can create a shared folder, and this folder is going to be just a start-off folder. So we do this one as test 1, and this folder will be data that can be shared over the network or the internet or other users as you see fit. So if we move forward, we'll disable that encryption banner there for now. And from here, there it is. It's going to let us know that our volume is going to be created, and we click finish, and it will start creating our volume. And there you go, volume is created. So now we've got our volume that lives on our storage pool, and that's really it. Now you are pretty much good to go. It will need to initialize that volume to create it fully. The space has been partitioned, as well as the synchronization of that RAID. Once again, this can take 8 to 12 hours. But once this is done overnight, you will be left with a QNAP NAS that is ready to go, ready for all of those applications to be installed from the App Center, ready to be utilized by all of your users by creating new users, ready to protect you and back up your data.
Storage pool has reached the threshold.
There you go. You see, it's already got ready, and it's just alerting you that the one that we've just created is using all of the available data. And again, I do like those live notifications. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. The storage space has been created. Our RAID is in the process of being created. And right now, what we've got is our full NAS ready to go. Don't worry about that. That's just letting us know that the RAID is being completed. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you've got any questions about setting up your RAID for the first time, do let me know. And do remember, if you're looking at a QNAP NAS, do visit the guys at span.com, the NAS experts. Alternatively, if you want to learn more about NAS, go to nascompares.com, where we review, compare, and more. And finally, if you've got a question, why not send me a message via Twitter at Robbie on the Tube. Thanks for watching.